Get started, Mr. Vance.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you so much for being here. Today we are at the Lower Manhattan Security Initiative, which, as you may know, is the nerve center of the NYPD's counterterrorism efforts. As events that we see unfold around the world, we know there is nothing more important than securing our city from another terrorist attack. That could be a threat from domestic terrorists, as our office has dealt with in the most recent years, or international terrorists who incite hatred and plot against New York City. Today, we are announcing the first in a series of transformative criminal justice investments that we believe will promote fairness, justice, and make us safer at the same time. Now, these investments are as a result of settlements in our investigations and prosecutions of multiple foreign banks who violated U.S. sanctions and New York state law. Each financial institution in those cases exploited the American banking system and New York state law by hiding that they were moving money on behalf of regimes and governments in places like Iran, Sudan, Burma, Libya, and Cuba through New York. Using these settlement dollars obtained through criminal forfeiture, the NYPD, the mayor's office, and our office today are announcing a $160 million investment in public safety and in tools that may well thwart another terror attack. This new program will bring all of the crime-fighting information currently available to the New York City police officers onto one mobile platform for the first time. And these new mobile devices will bring this information out into the field to the police officers, into the hands of each and every NYPD officer out where he or she is working. In order to get this real-time information to officers on the beat, this initiative will provide tablets for every police car, some 6,000 of them, and give mobile handheld communication devices to every one of the 35,000 police officers who serve our city every day. Now, the commissioner is going to go into much greater detail, but generally I can say that this initiative will allow the NYPD to extend to all officers the world-leading terror and crime-fighting technologies that have been created in the last decade. We expect these devices will not only help officers do their jobs, but aid crime victims, help solve crimes, and may even help to prevent crimes from occurring in the first place. A couple of real-world examples. A police officer, in our opinion, shouldn't have to walk into a building without knowing whether there are guns registered to people living in that building, whether there are sex offenders who are registered living in that building, and what 911 calls have related to that building before they respond into that location. So the kind of data these officers will now have at the swipe of a finger before they enter a facility or a building is real-time 911 data, warrant information from federal, state, and city databases, photographs of missing persons, suspects, Crime Stoppers posters, and other persons of interest. And by this spring, we anticipate the integration of fingerprint scanning as well as enhanced data collection in the field. This initiative will also enhance the accuracy and speed of information exchange between police officers and prosecutors, something I'm very interested in, as well as other law enforcement agencies, increasing efficiency and, we believe, fairness in our justice system. By giving police officers in the field tools generally only available at the precinct, they will have in the field as much information as possible to make the best, most informed decisions. Now, today's investment is the largest single allocation of money from our international sanctions cases to date, but there will be several other announcements in the coming months in the areas of sex crime, cybercrime, mental health, public housing, criminal diversion, and reentry. These forfeiture dollars will be used to help to transform law enforcement, criminal justice, and we believe the lives and safety of millions of New Yorkers. Let me end by saying I am truly grateful to have the partnership we have with Mayor de Blasio and Commissioner Bratton and the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice and with the whole NYPD, whom we are grateful for every day. Their leadership and forward thinking makes innovation in this area possible and will have a lasting impact on public safety. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you so much. Well, we are sobered by the events happening around the world. We're sobered by the events happening in Canada. But there still is good news. There still are steps forward. And today we're talking about a major step forward for the NYPD and its ability to fight crime and its ability to prevent acts of terror. We have Cy Vance to thank for that. I have to tell you that this is the result of a lot of hard work. Cy and his team looked at the actions of these foreign banks, saw that they were aiding and abetting states that bluntly sponsor terrorism, and did something about it. As District Attorney, Cy Vance has been, I think, exemplary. In this case, he went at the heart of the problem, helped to stop these banks from doing the wrong thing to begin with, and then with the resources he's brought back, he's making New York City safer. So I just want to say to the District Attorney, this took, I'm sure, I can only imagine the hours and the energy and the creativity that had to go into this case. But what you did had a double positive impact for the people of New York, sending a message to financial institutions that they can't consort with our enemies, but also bringing back resources to make us safer. I want to thank you and your whole team for what you've done.
You're welcome.
Now, this again, for us, means a huge step forward into the 21st century for the NYPD. It will help us fight crime every single day in a myriad of ways. It will be invaluable in the fight against terror. Just imagine for a moment information instantaneously going to each and every one of our almost 35,000 officers, instantaneously. Something, and the Commissioner will speak about this from his experience, something that was unimaginable a few years ago, now will be an immediate tool in the hands of all of our officers. That's going to have immeasurable benefit. It means that anything going on, any alert, any up-to-date information can get to those who are protecting us anywhere in the city instantaneously. It will magnify the impact of the men and women who do this work protecting us. We have already the finest police force in this country, and I argue the finest police force in the world. Part of what makes it so great, it is constantly innovating. It's constantly looking for ways to get better. I think it's fair to say Commissioner Bratton personifies that concept, and I've never seen him, despite being one of the people who could rest on his laurels, I've never seen him do it for a moment. He's constantly looking for the next great innovation. And he's put together a team of people who think the same way, and I just want to acknowledge and thank them because today is a culmination of a lot of their work as well. Our Deputy Commissioner for Intelligence and Counterterrorism, John Miller, couldn't be here, but I want to thank him for the great work he does. Tom Galati, our Chief of Intelligence, James Waters, our Chief of Counterterrorism, Robert Boyce, our Chief of Detectives, and I want to also thank our host here today who does tremendous work keeping Lower Manhattan safe, Captain Christine Doherty, who runs the Lower Manhattan Security Coordination Center. These are professionals who are devoted to figuring out new ways to make us even safer. And technology, cutting-edge technology, is what they think about every single day. And they're finding ways to bring that into the life of the work we do. Now, even as we celebrate what this will allow us to do over the next year, and the Commissioner will give you a sense of the rollout, but we intend to get these resources in the hands of our officers very quickly. Even as we wait for new tools, let's acknowledge and appreciate what the NYPD has achieved in just the last few months, because it's extraordinary. August this year, September this year, the lowest number of shootings for that respective month since the CompStat system was initiated in 1994. Think about that for a moment. I would remind you who brought us the CompStat system and say thank you again. Since that system was initiated, 20 years, this August was the lowest number of shootings in any August in 20 years. This September, the lowest number of shootings of any September in the last 20 years. Extraordinary work being done by the men and women of the NYPD, and now additional tools being brought into the game. Just give you a little picture of this. A 911 call comes in. That information now can go out to a number of officers. They can read exactly what is being said, what the address is, what the description is. That changes the game. They can search federal and state and local databases for information right as they're doing their job. They can get that information at their fingertips. They can connect to the NYPD's state-of-the-art counterterrorism system. All of this speeds up the work of public safety, and in public safety, every minute counts, every second counts. And it literally can mean the difference between life and death, that our officers will have this information. It's going to allow them to save lives. It's also going to allow us to keep our officers safer. Let me now speak as a parent. Think about, and I think parents all over the city will understand this immediately. Think about if your child was missing. You need to know that every effort is being expended to find that child. With this technology, literally every officer at NYPD can instantaneously and simultaneously see the picture of that missing child. And that will speed the efforts to find that child and bring the child home to safety. That is an extraordinary step forward. We also have resources, thanks to this extraordinary settlement and the partnership we have with the district attorney. We have resources to upgrade NYPD's infrastructure technologically and improving the fiber network that allows all this to happen. And this means things will be done in the field that used to have to be done in the station house. The experts will describe it, but let me give you a simple example. You can literally, with this technology, take a fingerprint on a street corner in New York City. A police officer can take a fingerprint, process immediately, whether someone has a warrant out, confirm an identity. This is going to speed the work of law enforcement. It's also going to allow us to not have to bring as many people into the station house. It's going to allow us to do more summonses and fewer arrests where appropriate. It's going to simplify and make more efficient the work that people in law enforcement do. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for that. I'm going to turn to, in a moment, when I get to a keyword, I'm going to acknowledge Jessica Tisch, and you're going to hand me that for a second. So when we think about the dilemma we face, a 21st century set of challenges. We didn't talk about terrorism a few decades ago. We didn't think about cybercrime. We didn't think about all sorts of things. We have a 21st century set of challenges. These are 21st century tools to fight the challenges we face, and it'll allow us to get the better of the situation. Just a couple of words in Spanish. Hoy estamos haciendo inversiones importantes que harán que nuestra ciudad sea aún más segura. Vamos a ofrecer teléfonos inteligentes a cada oficial de policía para hacer que la aplicación de la ley sea más eficaz y eficiente. Now, as I turn to the Commissioner, I just want to say this is extraordinary what this technology allows us to do, but the technology itself, which you'll hear from Deputy Commissioner for Technology, Jessica Tisch, the technology itself is amazing. I just want you to hand it to me for 1 second. Oh, right here. Great. Because this allows me to use today's favorite new word, which Jessica will use as well. This is what this extraordinary, it's called a tough pad, by the way. It is ruggedized. This means, is my new favorite adjective, ruggedized. It means this can be used in any kind of condition, any kind of situation, rain or shine, be banged around, it's still going to work. It's not only extraordinary technology, it's extraordinarily durable technology, and I give the NYPD a lot of credit for figuring out what will work in today's policing conditions. With that, as I said, if you think about innovation, if you think about someone who never rests on his laurels, always is looking for the next thing that'll make us safer, you literally, if you looked up that concept in the dictionary, you would see a picture of Bill Bratton. And that is why this city is safe and gets safer all the time, because of his extraordinary efforts. Our Police Commissioner, Bill Bratton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that very gracious introduction. A few thank yous are in order before I make my remarks. Certainly to Cy Vance, his office, the generosity, if you will, in terms of responding to the request to support this initiative, and the wholehearted embrace of it, appreciating its importance to the cops in this field, but to the 8.5 million people in the city that will be better served because of it. Very, very appreciative of the continuing and expanding partnership that we have together. To Mayor de Blasio for his quick response and embrace of this idea, that and the coming together with Cy's office, Liz Glazer, his criminal justice coordinator, putting a lot of time and effort to ensure that the multiplicity of agencies that had to work on this came together, embraced it, supported it, and advanced it very, very quickly. A particular thank you on my part to one of the consultants that work with me, John Linder, who spent a lot of time on this initiative. But most importantly, I think, among the thank yous at this session is the creator of the idea, and that's Jesse Tisch. Jesse is the Deputy Commissioner for Information and Technology at the NYPD. The room that you were in, this is the heart and soul of our domain awareness system developed by Commissioner Kelly after 9/11. Jesse was very intimately involved with so many others in its creation. This center, LMSI, is the heart and soul of the 8,000 cameras, and that number is growing, where we monitor them in this room, private sector, public, federal agencies. This is the heart and soul. The domain awareness system is now going to be enhanced significantly, where information that could only be gathered at computer terminals and precinct station houses, detective offices, and at the real-time crime center that was also developed over the last number of years, we are now going to be able to take all of those capabilities and bring them into the squad car, the RMP. 35,000 officers, detectives will have, both with the ruggedized tablets and with 35,000 of these. 35,000 smartphones. Literally everything that we can do in a precinct station house, they will be able to do in the field. Shortly, we will be issuing email addresses to all members of the department, all 50,000. So I will, sometime next year, be able to instantly reach all 50,000 members of the NYPD in a moment on email. We will be able to utilize this technology for so many purposes, principally conceived to help our counterterrorism efforts, but as the mayor referenced, day to day, we had, unfortunately, this morning discovered the body of a 91-year-old man who had went missing 2 days ago. If we had this technology, as soon as that elderly gentleman went missing, every cop in this city, every traffic agent, every school security officer would have had his picture and description, and maybe we might have been able to find him before, unfortunately, whatever the circumstances were of his death. An incredible, incredible tool. As has been mentioned, in terms of dealing more efficiently with the district attorney's offices on the issue of arrest and summons activity, in the 1990s, in dealing with the fare evasion issue in the subway, what worked against us was that when we arrested a suspect at 125th Street, we had to bring him all the way down here to do the screening of that individual. You may recall, some of you have been around for a while, we developed buses. We had 6,000 buses in the Transit Authority. They gave me half a dozen. We made them into mobile arrest processing centers, and we parked them at the locations where we were making those arrests. 7 out of 10 people that we brought onto that bus, where we could scan their fingerprints, check them for wants and wanted, were able to be released right there on the spot, because we were able to confirm that there were no wants and warrants, and they could get a desk appearance ticket and go on their way. Effectively, this is the evolution of that, where officers with the capabilities that we will be able to give them will be able to really go about identifying correctly who are they dealing with, what is their criminal history, and effectively reducing the workload for the department, the operational efficiencies, and the workload for the district attorney's offices. Christmas has come early. The holiday season has come early for the NYPD and this city. Come Thanksgiving, we will have a lot to be thankful for. We will be ending the year with crime down once again, murders, overall crime situation. But we'll also be thankful for, as we move into the next year, we will now have a technology platform that builds on the domain awareness system, that builds on this room, that can go out to all 40-some-odd thousand of our agents out in the field, uniformed security officers, et cetera. But that we also, as Christmas comes, we certainly will have the gifts of these devices that we can give out to our personnel. I've been dreaming about this for a long time. At Chiefs conferences, we've been talking about it. We've been nibbling at the edges of it. The NYPD, for most of the last 3 decades, has been a leader in the evolution of policing. Beginning with the embrace of community policing in the early 1990s, the idea that police could, in fact, prevent crime, the development of the CONSTAT system, the quickest expanding revolution in the history of policing and indeed in public government, where most police departments in the country now embrace that system. After 9/11, the creation of all of this to deal with the terrorism risk to this city. And now moving forward with the work of Cy Vance and his efforts to acquire this money, the mayor's willingness to partner up and basically move it forward and prioritize it, we effectively are continuing that evolution where the NYPD once again will be changing the face of American policing. I, for the next several days, will be attending a major city chiefs conference where it was with great delight I will be introducing all of this to them and encouraging them to come to New York once again, as they did to look at CompStat, come and once again look at an agency that basically is moving, leapfrogging into the 21st century, and what we have, we want to share, and we will share. So I'll close my remarks by introducing Jesse Tisch, who will give you some of the specificity of the devices, but close also again by just a sincere thank you to the district attorney, to the mayor, and to certainly Ms. Tisch for her energy, creativity, and she's fun to work with. She's a terror if she doesn't get her way, so I usually let her get her way. And so she's certainly getting her way on this technology. Jesse.
Thank you, Commissioner. I am just going to briefly describe 3 different use cases for our DAS mobile platform. The first is what we call 911 jobs or alerts. So every officer will be able to set his or her own filters, meaning, say, if I'm working in the 1st precinct and I'm covering a particular sector, I'll say, show me all of the 911 calls that I have to respond to that are in the 1st precinct in Sector Adam. And those 911 calls, they'll not only get now dispatched over the radio, they'll also get them on their tablets. And what they can do when the 911 call comes in on their tablets is they can open up the job just by touching it. They can see all of the 911 text that the call taker in the 911 call center enters into the system. They'll see an overview of the location that they're responding to. So are there any active warrants at that location? Have there been arrests at that location? Are there any 911 calls for shots fired at that location? And this is really done to enhance officer safety and promote, I think, efficiency and effectiveness in the field. They'll also see the location of the 911 jobs that they're responding to on a map. The second use case is search. It's universal search of all NYPD data. And so they can enter into the system any name, any word, the words white van, and pull up any NYPD record that has that information in it. The system is also hooked into their case management system so that any records that they find of interest, instead of having to go back to their desks and do that search and put it into the case management system, they can do from out in the field. The third and final use case, Commissioner Bratton alluded to it, is around our notifications, and that is, for example, if there's a missing person, if there's a wanted person, we can get that information out now in real time to all the officers in the field. So here's an example. So this is a Crime Stoppers poster that came through that we just pulled up, $2,000 reward for homicide. If we close it out.
Hold it up, sir.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I'll pull it back up. So there's the
She's obviously never watched Jeopardy, so she's not good at this.
we can close it out, and we can see all of the different Crime Stopper photos that are coming through, and essentially click on any one of them or tap on any one of them and pull up the underlying record. And so this is a capability that we never had before, obviously, in the field. This is something that officers would have to go back to the command to see. So I gave you an example of a Crime Stopper, someone who's wanted for a homicide, but we could do the very same thing with a missing person, essentially any type of person that we're searching for. And so that was the overview of the 3 different main use cases that exist right now. I want to stress that everything that you can do on this tablet, the officers can do today from their desks. So it's not like they have access to more information than they used to have access to. They just have access to the same information they would get at their desks now in the field, which we hope will promote officer safety, efficiency, and effectiveness.
Thank you very much. Well done.
We'll start with some on-topic questions, please, to start with.
Two questions. You mentioned that these devices may lead to fewer arrests. Can you speak to what you would like to see? And then secondly, I think the Manhattan DA said this is partly being funded by banks that did business with countries that you're not supposed to be doing, including Cuba, which is a place that you had traveled to many years ago. If you can just address that part of the funding stream.
I don't know the details of all the prosecution. The DA can speak to that. But I think the fact is, let's take the case of Iran, which is obviously the leading state sponsor of terrorism anywhere in the world. You know, it's been well documented that sadly some Western banks have continued to do the bidding of that government. And obviously those resources could end up aiding and abetting terror. Again, I'm going to let the experts speak to that. But from my point of view, what the district attorney achieved here is not only disrupting that flow of money, but also forcing a penalty which now will help us fight terror. Do you want to speak to that?
Ozzy, nice hat. Do you need any more information?
Yeah, that's
Great. Okay. All right.
And then on the issue of fewer arrests, is there a number that you would like to see or an estimation as to how much lower?
I don't think it's about setting an artificial number, because obviously it depends on the conditions we face any given month, any given year. I'll let the commissioner speak to that. But I think the point is we've made clear that there's a variety of situations where a summons is the most appropriate outcome. And where arrests can be avoided if the information is available. If you can confirm identity, if you can confirm there's no outstanding warrants, that gives us another tool to reduce unnecessary arrests and focus on summonses. So I think this will be part of moving us forward on that front.
Let me speak specifically to that. Three issues that, in terms of officer efficiency. I already gave the example of what happened in the early 1990s when, instead of arresting people and for fear evasion, moving them all the way down to lower Manhattan or into any of the 5 boroughs, by using the bus out in the field, 7 out of 10 people that would have been arrested were effectively giving a desk appearance ticket on the spot and let go in less than an hour, because we could basically access Albany fingerprint files right away. Similarly here, as the fingerprint capabilities is in fact brought into play. This will take some time, but we were modeling it out in L.A. when I was chief in L.A. a few years back, so it is a technology that is available. That would, in fact, allow officers to effectively identify in the field whether this person is wanted on a warrant and previous summonses, et cetera. It will also be very beneficial to the public in that, in building a relationship with the public, that the idea that reason we've stopped you is we have a description of an individual. The officer would literally be able to show them their tablet or their iPhone. Here's who I'm looking for. Or here's a photo of who I'm looking for. What we'll also have the capability of on these devices ultimately is to send out video. Some of the video that you people show on the newscasts all the time so that have officers. So if you think of a relationship building with stopped you, what are you stopping me for? Well, here, this is the call I just received. Yep. Here's the information of the description, and it is a relationship-building tool for us also. No, I cannot overestimate the benefit. The officer efficiency issues. Instead of officers having to bring people back to the station house, the travel time, the lost time, the amount of time cops will get to spend in the field instead of back in the precinct station houses, the efficiencies are just phenomenal. And the officer safety. A paramount interest of mine always is officer safety. The idea of going to a call and knowing everything about the recent history of that address. Cops are off for a couple of days, they come back, they do a 15-minute roll call. They really are not up to speed on what's happened in their particular sector. Now they can basically bring it up in their device, they can bring it up on the tablet. Here's everything that's happened in the last 48 hours while you on a day off in your sector. And now as you're going to that house, is there a gun registered there? The officer might not know that there was a shooting incident there last night. You're in the news business. You understand the importance of timely, accurate information. This is taking CompStat into the 21st century. It's taking it out of the 8th floor headquarters and putting it not just into the RMP, but into the hand of an officer on a subway car, an officer on a walking beat, even a traffic agent, as we eventually give these out to our traffic personnel for limited use. And we can control what can be accessed through these devices also.
Mayor, may I?
Please, of course.
Ozzie, I think there's one other benefit that is significant that also affects our office, and that's the question of fairness. So as the officers are able to provide greater public safety for themselves and others at the scene, by having more information about who is actually being detained at the scene, we're going to be able to make better judgments about what happens to that case. And the immediate benefit may be that a large number of people who can be identified at the scene will not have to come down to one police plaza or our office to be arraigned. It opens up a host of alternative ways to investigate the beginning of a case, particularly in quality of life crimes, that I think it's just a complete win-win. And by giving us more information, by giving the police more information, we're able to make better, fairer judgments of cases at the inception of the case. And I think that is, and I think the community that we live in has asked for that kind of on real-time, on-scene, good judgment making. Please.
There's obviously there's going to be a lot of information for the officers to have in the field now. Are there going to be any protocols put in place about how to research, what sites or databases they're supposed to go to first, and how will that training take place, sir?
Protocols already in place for use of the computer terminals in the station. Many of those will apply to the devices out in the field. There's also, to avoid abuse, there is the capability of every touch of any of these devices, similar to the computers in the precinct station houses, will be recorded, documented. That in terms of officers with their passwords, who's using what device, the intimacy of being able to track what the device is being used for so that they're not being abused. So as Jesse has indicated, it's not so much that there's an expansion at this time of information available to the officers. It's where it's available to them out in the field where it's actually needed more than it is sometimes the station house. Over time, however, the platform that's now being built for this will allow, as we see, some of these companies every year, they're coming out with new devices, new enhancements. We will now have the bandwidth, something that was not referenced here. $20 million of this money that Vance is funding is to put in hundreds of miles of fiber optics to all of our 200-some-odd facilities. That fiber optics capability will allow instantaneous, instead of this slow up type of sending of information instantly. We can get it back and forth, and we can handle the increased capacity of this. So the platform, we will be able to take advantage of new technologies that are constantly being developed and immediately put them into play. I can't even begin to describe my excitement at the potential. Everything I've been looking at for the last 20-some-odd years since I was police commissioner here the last time, it's as if finally it's coming to life. And Jesse, I know, is very much excited by it because what she helped to create in this room is now seeing, it's like the Christmas tree. It's been there, it's beautiful by itself, but now we got all these ornaments that we can put on it, and we can particularize it and make it as beautiful as we want. And so that's when I talk about Christmas coming early. In some respects, it has come early. We have all these ornaments to hang. I think I'll probably be hanging some of these on the Christmas tree at One Police Plaza this year as our new ornaments.
In order, go ahead.
Yeah. So one thing, could somebody tell us what ruggedized actually means?
Don't show it. You love that word.
I'm sorry, this is my new favorite word. I'm going to have Jesse explain the specific meaning of ruggedized. I asked her if we could dribble this as a demonstration, just to show you. But why don't Jesse come on over and explain the specific thing that ruggedizing does for you?
Let me start the explanation.
Oh, hold on.
Remember years ago, Samsonite, to show how strong their luggage was, had that gorilla jump up and down on it? My argument would be to test any product for ruggedization, give it to a New York cop, and let him have it for 24 hours, and you'll have tested it in terms of all the issues they face, running, falling, jumping. So ruggedized means, to the best of your ability, trying to protect a very valuable piece of equipment from harm in the sense of in the normal course of events. You drop it, you spill something on it. That's ruggedized, if you will. And the mayor's was just fascinated with this word. That, Jesse?
Jesse is now going to demonstrate.
That's ruggedized.
Jump up
I need one of those.
That's right. It's working just fine.
Waterproof, coffee-proof, which is very important.
Coffee-proof, very important.
Commissioner or the mayor,
Please.
any concern about police on patrol or school safety, everybody being buried in the tablets or on their phones and not looking up and seeing what's going on around them?
No, because effectively that's the world we're in today, that you do the same thing, that I want my cops basically putting their time to use. So if, in fact, they're doing that in the field rather than doing it in the police station, that where they're needed. So we have guidelines currently about what they can do with their personal devices. Very difficult to control that because we all, we're constantly on the phone. That's the world we're in today. It chose to turn a blind eye to the way the world is going. We'll have policies, procedures, et cetera, but I want them using these devices. I want them. I'll give you another example of the use of this because they'll have access to Google and mapping, et cetera. I was going into an office building the other day. We had a couple of our cops that were flown in from Queens under those critical response vehicles that we have. And the two officers were being besieged by, as I was walking up to them, it was hilarious watching all the tourists walking up looking for, here's a cop, how to get directions. Those two kids hadn't the faintest idea where anything was in Manhattan. They work in Queens. You've seen it. But both of them had their personal devices. And so they were Googling, the name of the restaurant or whatever, or they bring up the map and show people. I actually stood and watched them for a while because I was fascinated because we knew this event was coming. But there was another one also had a language app. And he was showing that when I went up to talk to him afterwards. He was showing me, yeah, but this app, he said, somebody comes up and they're speaking a language, I can basically punch it in and they can do a little translation for them. So the cops are already doing this on their own. Why not give them the capability within our authority to do it in a better way?
Mr. Mayor, I'm wondering if you can talk about, as far as some of these settlements, how much the city has gotten so far, how much the DA's office has gotten so far, and also whether you're limited to using it for public safety or you're just choosing to prioritize that at this point and other issues might get money.
Well, I'll have the district attorney talk to the history. We think public safety is the right use of this funding. Again, there's a direct link to the war on terror here, that the laws that were violated get back to, particularly, again, the case of Iran, nations that unfortunately have aided and abetted terror. We're the #1 terror target in the United States. We have to do more to keep ourselves safe. I think there is a perfect symmetry here. The district attorney fought against this scourge, won the case, and now we're devoting the resources with him to public safety. So I think it's the right thing to do. Do you want to speak to the history?
Sure. When the BNPP settlement dollars are all accounted for, our office will have returned to the city and state of New York since, in the last 5 years, $3.5 billion. Now, I have an annual.
That's real money.
I have an annual operating budget of about $80 million, and I like to say, the DA of New York County, it's a good investment. But not frivolously, these are dollars that are on important cases. I mean, I think my predecessor, Bob Morgenthau, believed that where there are rogue countries who are involved with funding international terrorism or conduct that the American people have said is sanctionable, they should not be able to use our banking system, and they should not be able to trick our banking system by disguising the money movements in the way they did. So I think the cases are both important from a New York safety standpoint, from a world safety standpoint, and they have also had the benefit of returning to our governments monies that is very valuable and such the value of which you can be seen today. In the BNPP settlement, the state roughly has $3.2 billion out of the overall settlement of $4.4 billion that went to New York. The federal government took $4.4 billion. New York State and City took $4.4 billion. The state took 3.2 approximately of that share, and the rest, by statute, comes to the DA's office, where we are using it for public safety purposes, transformative investments in the criminal justice system in partnership with our partners in criminal justice, and the same amount went to the mayor's office, and I know that the mayor and Liz Glazer will also use it for projects that really matter, projects that we have been waiting to do for decades and now have the resources to do it. So I agree with the commissioner. This is an important moment in time,
Game changer.
And we want to make the best of the opportunity that fate has given us.
Just one more point on this. I'll turn to this side of the room for questions. Just one more point on this, though. If we were looking for one individual who was associated with a terrorist group, imagine the fact that we have 35,000 officers who now simultaneously can receive that information, 34,000 pairs of eyes on the situation, let alone other law enforcement entities. In a more complicated world, this is an extraordinary tool, because literally if we're looking for one individual, now that picture can be in the hands of every single officer instantaneously. Talk about a game changer. That is an extraordinary advance, and it's only happening because the district attorney won this case and recognized the opportunity here to transform the way we police. Over here.
For the district attorney, can you tell us a little bit more about this case? What was this bank accused of doing? What did they admit to doing?
The settlement is a public document, and I'm sure we can send that to you if you wish to see it. But it was resolved by plea in, I think, early July of this year. And in substance, BNPP acknowledged through its corporate officers and a plea in court that over an extended period of time, it had been hiding the source of funds that it was moving through New York City clearing. So international transactions are typically cleared in dollars. Those dollars are typically cleared in New York, although they're in electronic transfers. And BNPP had, knowing that this was illegal, had engaged in hiding the source or endpoints of the monies that it was moving through New York in an effort to not trip what are called the OFAC filters, the federal filters that are tripped if you have Iran somewhere on a message, a electronic message, and also creating false records as they moved through New York City and New York State, thereby victimizing our banking system and the state of New York. The most egregious, the statement of facts is long, but I think among the concerns was the amount of money that BNP moved for the government of Sudan over an extended period of time in the billions of dollars, and hiding the fact that it was moving money to support the economy of Sudan and the actions of Sudan. I think that was a factor that I think weighed heavily among all the prosecutors. And by the way, the federal government was our full partner in this, and a full investigative partner, weighed heavily with all the investigating agencies. But what I can do is get you, if you want, a copy of the BNPP settlement and accusatory instrument, and that will give you, I guarantee you, everything you need to know.
Can these devices track officers, and if so, are there union issues? Also, will they be accessible in subway stations where we can't get internet?
Well, let Jesse speak to some of the technical issues, subways, et cetera. Relative to the tracking, that we will have both the ability to know everything that's done on the device, but we are also in the process, as most American police departments taking advantage of the new technology, we are currently in the process of equipping all of our vehicles with GPS location devices so that our dispatchers will be able to, on their screens, supervisors on their screens of the precinct, at any time see where all of our vehicles are. Are they on call, engine on, engine off, so that we can effectively assign our closest car, or from the officer safety standpoint, if they get in trouble and are not able to give a location, we will know exactly where they are, because basically we have those capabilities. Are they union issues? The union traditionally certainly has expressed concern, but over the time they expressed concern initially about bulletproof vests, the requirement that officers wear them all the time. That was fought very aggressively by many unions in this country. That has ceased. Name tags was fought very aggressively by unions. Some unions in the country have expressed opposition to the body cameras. Fortunately, our unions are basically not contesting the ability to go forward with the pilot testing of the body cameras because they understand the safety feature to officers. So I think the safety features will override any concern about the intimacy of what officers are doing. When they're on duty, we have the right and the obligation, both from public safety as well as officer safety, to the best of our ability, try to facilitate how we use them, where we use them, and when we use them.
Quick follow-up before the subway answer. What happens when a cop goes home? Does he shut off the device, or can he use it on his off, or she use it on her
That'll be
own?
part of the policies, much the same as their radios. They are issued personal radios. The body cameras, as we move forward with those, they'll be issued personal body cameras. The firearms, all of their equipment is covered by policy as to when, where they wear it, when they're not wearing it, how do they secure it. So similarly, this will be part of what Jesse and her people will be working on, the policy development relative to those issues. Jesse?
Today, for the most part, no. To answer the question about underground, for the most part, they will not work underground. Oops, sorry, Commissioner.
Okay, last call on topic. Yes,
What's the timeline? Have these already been purchased? When are they issued? How soon are we actually
What's
going
the
to see them?
rollout? Yeah.
Today we have
Roll the drum roll.
Today we have a pilot with about 40 or so officers piloting just the tablets. I hope to have a few hundred out, hopefully at the beginning of the new year.
Let me jump in.
Sure.
You can add to it, but look, the goal here is to get this as fully implemented next year as possible. We know that, again, this is a huge leap forward technologically. It's a huge force. We're going to learn through the pilots. We're going to learn through implementing this on a larger level. But our goal is to expand with every month, and by next year have a really strong presence of this across the force. Anything to add? That's good? Okay.
A few off topics.
Off topics. Off topics. Yes.
There's a video out of the arrest of Raymond Romero, and it contradicts the account of the officers. Shows him placed on the ground, punched and kicked and tasered. Is it
Okay, let's address this. We are going to have routinely he said, she said, allegations being made by attorneys for defendants. The matters are under investigation. We have a process. So that matter is under investigation by our internal affairs, the appropriate district attorney's offices. So what more is to be said? We operate from the disadvantage, but maybe the advantage. We try to go where the truth will take us rather than the benefit attorneys have of basically feeding the beast, putting out the one-sided version of it. So in terms of this incident, as many of the others that we are trying to deal with, as we are moving forward to identify officers who might be engaging in inappropriate behavior, there was a process. And you're well aware of that process because you report on it all the time, although usually most of the reporting is on the front end, not so much what happens at the final resolution. So on that one, that matter is the subject of a department, internal affairs, and maybe a CCRB, depending on where it was initially reported. And then the district attorney's office and the appropriate borough would certainly get into it if there's any allegations of criminal misconduct on the part of the police officer.
Just to add to that for a moment, I want to commend the commissioner because he calls them as he sees them. There's always an investigation. You can't do anything on hearsay. You can't do anything lightly. But you've seen this commissioner, when he thinks an officer comported himself or herself properly, we'll say that. When he thinks after the investigation someone deserves a disciplinary measure, he is not slow to do it. So I think we have here a balanced approach. And the commissioner set a very high standard for the men and women at NYPD, and the people of the city appreciate that. But what's clear is there has to be a full investigatory process in each and every case. What we are also doing, and I commend the commissioner further, the retraining of the entire police force is clarifying what we think is the appropriate way to approach what are always difficult situations. And let's remember, each and every one of our officers is put into very complicated situations on a daily basis. The retraining is to help every officer know what this commissioner's standard is and the best way to approach things. And I think you're going to see in many cases, and I think this information technology as well will add to it, better ability to approach complicated situations, a better ability to interact with the public, and a better ability to bring police and community closer together.
Yes, Commissioner, what are you learning about or from this latest attack in Canada?
Actually, I just had a full briefing this morning by Chief Waters, who's here, counterterrorism, and Chief Galati. I've been staying abreast of that, as you might appreciate. We routinely have, as part of our overseas detectives offices up in Canada, we have supplemented that by sending another officer up to that area. So we are staying very intimate with that matter as it goes forward. Most of it is, as you're already reporting, it's pretty much out there. We will certainly be looking for any nexus back in the United States, travel, et cetera, of this individual. We have, as you're well aware, we've got a very robust, almost 1,000-person counterterrorism intelligence capability. Effectively, this now gives us 35,000 officers who can now assist on that. But that case is, we're very actively engaged in that. Similarly with Israel, the detective that we have in Israel was back here for a few days for debriefings, and he's now back. The Israeli incident, the death of the young child, my understanding is that young child was an American citizen, and so it has an American New York connotation to it. And our area of focus is that the radicals have been promulgating and encouraging the lone wolves or whatever to take action, and one of the actions they have encouraged is use of vehicles. And so we've now seen an incident in Israel, use of a vehicle. We saw an incident earlier this week up in Canada, the death of a uniformed soldier in an assault with a vehicle. So that we will look very closely in terms of attempting to identify motivation of those individuals as to were they in fact responding to the encouragement, were they part of a larger cell, or were they lone wolves that so we're very good at this, and we learn from it and very quickly put it into our game book, if you will.
Just to follow up on that point, how do you sort of look for those signs of encouragement? There's people that have questions about surveillance and security and personal privacies, but if the lone wolf aspect is something that you're concerned about, how do you look for people that are encouraged?
We're very skilled at that. The review of social media. Everything we do is in accordance with the law, and I will emphasize that. And even as the concerns about these types of issues expand, our capabilities expand in terms of the ability to frequently access social media. Some of the intelligence investigations for known terrorist activities overseas are working in coordination with our federal colleagues here. So one of the benefits of the city being the focal point of so much interest in this area is that we have the most robust counterterrorism entity in the United States, along with our FBI colleagues. We are enhancing that early next month. The Commissioner for the Metropolitan Police is coming in for several days. We're having a series of meetings here in New York City around the issue of terrorism specifically. Chief from LA is coming in, Chicago, Washington, Philadelphia, Boston. They'll all be here around this emerging issue. I'm attending a chiefs conference the next several days where all the major city chiefs are coming together, and a particular focal point of interest, as you might appreciate, will be this issue. Unfortunately, several of our Canadian colleagues will not be attending because of what's going on up in Canada at the moment. But we stay very intimate, but I will emphasize it's all done within the law.
Just add quickly that the point here is that NYPD has done an extraordinary job. I mean, the track record speaks for itself over the last 13 years. But look, at the same time, there's a constant effort to improve, and it's not just the technology. This commissioner, to his credit, has drawn the NYPD closer to communities all over the city. That has intelligence gathering ramifications. That means more and more people are dealing with the NYPD and the city government in a more positive manner. We think that's going to lead to more people providing us helpful information in a variety of communities. So there's a number of tools being put in place. I will say one more thing, and Commissioner, I don't mean to make you blush here, but when I heard what our colleagues at the FBI had to say, a week ago in Washington, the FBI director and the other senior officials, about their respect not only for Commissioner Bratton but for the NYPD, and their sense of the NYPD as a particularly strong partner in this work. As a reminder of something every New Yorker should be proud of, that this city, after bearing the brunt of tragedy, not only got back on its feet, but figured out how to defend itself so well that now our federal partners turn to us often to see what we know and what we have at our disposal that can help them, and obviously it's very mutual. It's a constant two-way street. So I think ever-improving coordination with our federal partners, the use of technology, and the closeness that's being developed with communities around the city are all new tools. And as I said, this new technology we're announcing today, huge jump, because now it means every officer can be even more a part of that counterterrorism effort.
Time for two more, please.
Yeah.
Just a quick question. Could you expand, Commissioner, how do you stop a lone wolf attack? What kind of strategy?
Well, I think clearly my predecessor, Commissioner Kelly, and the NYPD during his tenure had several instances of that. We recently saw the conviction of the individual who was making pipe bombs and intending to use those in the city of New York, and he's now off doing about 25 years in federal prison. It is a growing concern. It's a concern. When I was chief of the LAPD, we were first focusing on, apart from the Mumbai type of multi-pronged attack, at the same time, the lone wolf, going back a number of years, was of growing concern, and it remains a priority at the moment. And there again, it is the idea of being very proactive and not reactive. And effectively, what we've done about crime in this city for 20 years, we understand that we have to have as our priority the prevention of it, capability to respond, but the focus has to be, priority has to be on prevention. And so all of this that you're sitting in the middle of, the other centers we have around the city, the relationships we have, the exchange of information. Recently, this last week, 2 weeks ago, the mayor and I, with the meetings we had in Washington, all of that is intended to make sure that we identify any cracks, if you will, that we need this to be a seamless relationship. So the coordination, the collaboration is absolutely essential. And as the mayor referenced, in this issue, collaboration with our very diverse communities in the city is critical, because they are the eyes and ears. If they see somebody becoming radicalized, behavior changing very quickly, we need them to be able to feel comfortable enough that they can relay that information and that it will be dealt with appropriately.
Rich, in the middle.
Oh, okay. I called Rich. You called the middle. We'll do the two of them. Go ahead, the middle.
Okay. Anything new on the Rubenstein rape case?
I've indicated through our office this is a very active and open investigation. And beyond that, at this time, I'm really not in a position to provide more detail, but it's being investigated by experienced lawyers in our office, and we will take the time we need to do the investigation that needs to be done.
For the commissioner briefing, I guess, this morning, the information that's in the media indicates that the two actors, or the actors in the two incidents in Canada, were both converts to Islam. Has there been a connection with ISIL or ISIS in regard to this at all? Have you heard that?
In terms of that, is part of the ongoing investigation, certainly on the part of the Canadian officials as it involves their jurisdiction, but certainly of interest to us as to whether, for two reasons. One, a learning curve, a helpful learning curve about if they were radicalized through that proselytization, in the sense of through the internet or the Inspire magazines that they are getting very sophisticated at, or are they truly lone wolves? Of more concern, are they part of a concerted effort? So that would be the focus of the investigation, to try to learn, are they truly lone wolves? Were they recently inspired by the propaganda, if you will? But maybe more importantly, were they acting truly on their own, or are they part of a larger plot? And that we don't know at this time. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.